What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to continue the automatic to 5-speed conversion on project CB9. As you can see here, we now have 3 pedals mounted to the firewall assembly. So we'll be changing out the brake pedal, adding the clutch pedal, adding the clutch master cylinder, along with the clutch master cylinder reservoir. And we need to take a trip out to the yard in order to grab some parts. So let's go ahead, take a closer look. All right, bright and early here at the yard. This is the only CB7 left. They've crushed the other 2 Honda Accords. So this is a, I believe, 92 LX. And indeed, this is a manual transmission. So what we're here for is that clutch pedal right there. And then we need some miscellaneous wiring and stuff like that. So hopefully today's visit will be a quick one up here at the yard. It looks like this car's got 293,000 miles. So it's got its use. Red interior, so I really can't do anything with the interior parts. Drop top Eclipse. 178,000 miles, runs and drives. Paul Walker will be sad. Okay, this is a 96 Accord here. Seats are already out, so this is a good candidate. What I'm doing is I'm actually taking some spare wiring right here, so I went ahead and cut it right near the ECU, and I pulled up the carpet and the trim, and I'm gonna go as far as back to the back seat, because what I need to do is I need to wire some new connectors on the H22. So I figured I'm gonna use some OEM wiring on that. So I'm gonna go ahead, take a few feet of this and buy whatever it's saying, it's like 10 cents a foot or whatever it is. So I'm gonna pull up the back seats, go as far back as I can, and grab this piece of wire. So this will help me wire up the H22. Okay, 1996 Accord sedan. This is a manual, and this body style plus the CB7 share the same clutch pedal. So this one seems to be in much better shape. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect clutch master cylinder and unbolt it, and we should have a better clutch pedal. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this clutch pedal. All right, let me show you what's going on with this clutch pedal. The hardest part of this clutch pedal removal is getting this cotter pin removed right here on the clutch master cylinder. There's a cotter pin there, and sometimes it's just hard to get off. I was able to break the tabs off and it fell right out. So now with that said, I can just basically hopefully push this pin out from the other side. And there we have it, this pin right here. And now it's free from the clutch master cylinder. Now you've got a 12mm right there on the firewall. There's another 12mm. Got some wires in the way. There's another 12mm up on the top there on the right left-hand side. And there's another 12mm towards the top of the dash. And once we get this thing out, I'll go ahead and show you the positions of the bolts. All right, clutch pedal's now out. There's a 12mm bolt right there, a 12mm bolt right there, and a 12mm nut on the underside of the dash. And there's 2 wiring connectors. And then once you disconnect the clutch master cylinder from the actual pedal arm itself, this thing comes right out. So it's tight working space, but luckily someone already attacked the dashboard. I guess maybe pulling a relay out or some sort, but that gave me a lot more working room and visibility to see what I'm doing. So it's not too bad removing a clutch pedal. We'll see what happens on the reinstallation process. 1999 Toyota 4Runner. You hardly see these things in the salvage yard. This thing has been here since April 13th. But this thing has been ravaged through, as you can see. Front clip is totally torn off. Engine and transmission's gone. Looks like the airbag went off. Front end collision of some sort. Yeah, these are some iconic 4x4 SUVs here. I mean, look at these frame rails, how beefy these things are. And it goes all the way through the bottom of the vehicle towards the back. This is not unibody. So this is what makes 4Runners and Land Cruisers iconic SUVs that just last and last, and they are built very strong. Everything else is just built unibody these days, just for simplicity and savings cost, I guess. But if you're gonna get an SUV or truck, frame on body is the way to go. Okay, first step in this manual transmission conversion project is we're going to go ahead and replace the automatic brake arm With the manual brake arm, this is a pedal assembly I pulled at the junkyard a few months ago when I bought the car. And upon doing research, found out that you can actually just remove the brake arm itself instead of this whole assembly, which simplifies this process, because when I removed this whole pedal assembly, I had to drop down the steering column and it was a lot of work reaching underneath that dashboard. So that makes me a little bit more relieved on this. So you've got a bolt right here and you got a nut on this side. And once we swap out the pedals, we'll definitely thread lock this just for safety. Just don't want that thing coming apart, but we'll obviously torque that down pretty tight. So let's go ahead and show you what we got in the automatic version here. Excuse the stains, haven't gone around to clean the carpet just yet, but you can see how big this automatic brake arm is. So I'm gonna reach up under the dash, it's a little bit tight under there with the wrench, and go ahead and remove this arm and disconnect the spring. And then hopefully this thing will be a simple swap out. So let's go ahead and get this thing swapped out. Okay, automatic pedal is almost out. Tough part of getting this out was the brake master cylinder has this pin, and there is a cotter pin that has to be removed. And it's hard to show you, but we've got this steering column in the way, and I'm basically working between the steering column and this brake arm assembly, and it's very tight, so I'm having to go on the other side with my angle needle nose pliers and having to break this cotter pin off. I figure that's the best way to get this thing off, but after about 10 minutes of fighting this thing, finally got it free. So now I'm going to undo the bolt in the spring, and hopefully this pedal should come out easily. Okay, automatic brake pedal is finally out of the car. Took about maybe 20 minutes fighting that cotter pin on the brake master cylinder. Anyhow, it's identical at the top here with the mechanism. Now there are folks out there that will actually cut this automatic brake pedal to replicate that of the manual transmission small pedal, and I don't recommend doing that. Number one, for safety reasons, and I'm just not a fan of, I guess, gutter rigging per se. If you're gonna do something, do it right. As you can see here, the arm is actually straight on, but if you look at the manual transmission, it actually curves off to the right-hand side, getting a little bit closer to the gas pedal. So that will give room for the clutch pedal itself. So I don't know what the end result of people that actually cut these things and how close this is to the clutch pedal. So anyways, that's their own business, but I'm gonna do this thing right and actually just swap out the parts for the right parts that are intended from the factory. So we'll go ahead and get this reinstalled. Tough part is getting this spring hooked up also, and then that cotter pin on the brake master cylinder. So hopefully this goes in smooth. Okay guys, I thought this pedal arm replacement was going to be straightforward, but I had to go ahead and drop the steering column down in order to get these pedals out of position. Now I actually had trouble getting this brake pedal return spring, which actually hooks up to the chassis on the top part right here and hooks into position right here. And I fought with this for over 2 hours trying to, you know, hook this with my needle nose pliers and using screwdrivers, and it just would not work with the steering column so close to this pedal assembly right here. So now that I've got everything out, I'm gonna go ahead and attach the spring in a matter of 30 seconds and have to reassemble everything. But you know, it is what it is, and this is just part of these newer type cars. You know, there's just limited working space in these vehicles, and then in order to sort these things out, I went ahead and just put all my parts in order with the correct bolts and nuts, just so I know everything goes back together. So let's go ahead and get the spring put on, and we'll get this thing reassembled. Okay, now that we've got the brake return spring set in position up here on the top of the chassis to the extra side of the pedal, this is now complete. So let's go ahead and install this back into the car. So I've got the nuts into position of where we'll be putting those on the firewall. We're not gonna put this nut on quite yet. We gotta wait for the bracket to go on before we can put that on. And there's actually one bolt on the underside of the dash itself. So 2, 4, 6, 7 nuts and one bolt to hold this in position. So let's go ahead and get this bolted in place. And let me show you how the throttle and the cruise control cables are mounted in the gas pedal itself. So as you can see here, there's actually a slit in the sheet metal. So when you have the cable, there's little barrels. So you're gonna rotate the barrel upwards, slide in position, and then rotate it backwards. Same theory for here. So this one actually locks even more. So you get to slide this and then just rotate it forward. Those are the two barrels I'm talking about right there. So that's what will attach to the throttle cable right there. And then for the brake pedal, there's your brake master cylinder connector right there, and that'll connect to the brake pedal itself. And as you can see, there's studs on the firewall, and that's basically how it connects. So let's go ahead, get this installed in the car. And what we want to do is we want to rotate it from far left side and kind of just rotate over the steering column. Basically, I had to drop down the steering column in order to get the clearance so I can get this pedal assembly removed. It's just standard procedure for this, but it wasn't too bad. So let's go ahead and get this thing bolted up. Now the pedals are in position. I got the brake master cylinder connector pushed in here, and it's very close tolerance. You gotta put a cotter pin to lock this in position. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna put the steering column back in the position right now, or if I'm gonna wait for my cotter pins to come in, because I ordered a set of cotter pins. So I'm gonna go ahead and see what we can get assembled so this is not in the way. Okay, now you wanna go ahead and connect your brake switch harness to the brake pedal assembly. And now I think we're gonna go ahead and get the steering column attached. So as you can see here, there's some special spacers that mount in position right here and here. And then as you can see, here's the stud right there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push this entire steering column up on those studs. These are the 14mm castle nuts that'll go onto there, and I've got my impact ready. So once I push these up in position and grab my impact, and hopefully I can get this in position. So go ahead and get this secured, and let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and put this bracket using the two 14mm bolts on the center part of the steering column. And this goes directly on the front side of the steering column using 4 10mm. So let's go ahead and get these mounted. Okay, accelerator pedal is connected, brake pedal is connected, minus the cotter pin that we're waiting on in the mail, and got the steering column brackets all in position. Now I'm not going to go ahead and install this finishing piece right here. That's just basically one Phillips head screw. Knowing my luck, I'll need to drop the steering column down, but I'll just go ahead and keep this off for the time being. But let me go ahead and show you what we got to work with. Next step is the clutch pedal arm. We'll go ahead and wait on that until we have the actual clutch line I'm waiting on and this cotter pin. So that's where that's at. But things are starting to take shape here. So we got the manual transmission brake and the accelerator in position. Now we just need to add the clutch pedal and we'll be good to go on the floorboard aspects. Okay, the package of cotter pins has arrived in the mail. I was able to get the brake master cylinder cotter pin in place. So now the pin is locked in position. As you can see here with the steering column and the brake pedal arm, it's a very tight tolerance. So I was able to get this in position and reach behind it with a flathead screwdriver and bend the tabs backwards. So now the cotter pin is in position and the brake pedal is 100% secure. Everything is good to go on the brake pedal. Okay guys, we're gonna go ahead and remove the filler plate from the clutch pedal area. So this 12mm bolt right here and this 12mm bolt right here, we need to go ahead and remove this. Let me go show you what it looks like in the engine bay. So here is the blank plate cover off. So there's a little stud right there and a stud right there. I presume this whole metal plate has the studs attached to it. So once those two 12mm bolts are released from the inside of the car, this thing should pop out going into the engine bay, and then we should have our 3 holes, which is where our clutch master cylinder will mount to. So let's go ahead and remove those 2 bolts. Okay guys, as you can see, it's almost off, so I'm gonna reach down there and grab this thing and pull it out. All right, here it is, clutch slave cylinder block off plate. Now I've got those 3 openings right there, and that's where our clutch master cylinder will mount to. So we'll go ahead and prepare that clutch master cylinder to get mounted in position. Okay, important thing to note that this block off plate has a rubber seal to it. So that's sandwiched on the firewall. So you want to take this rubber seal off this cover plate and you want to transfer it over onto your clutch master cylinder. Clutch master cylinders do not come with this rubber seal, so it's important to actually put this on before you put this in position. That way you don't have metal to metal when you mount this onto the firewall. So go ahead and get this thing put on and you should be good to go for mounting your clutch master cylinder into the engine bay. All right, let's go ahead and prepare the clutch master cylinder to go in the car. We've got a stainless steel braided clutch line that will go from the clutch master cylinder all the way to the slave cylinder on the transmission. We've got some hose clamps. We've got the clutch master cylinder reservoir. We've got a brand new braided clutch line that goes from the clutch master cylinder to the reservoir. And then we've got a Phillips head screwdriver, 14mm, 1/2 inch, and a 6mm. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna take this clutch line and attach it over the clutch master cylinder. Okay, we've got our clutch master cylinder all prepared. Now we can go ahead and mount this inside the engine bay. Clutch master cylinder and clutch master cylinder reservoir is officially mounted in the engine bay. Later on, we'll figure out where to mount this clutch line that connects to the slave cylinder. So I've got that just hanging right now, but most important part is these 2 items mounted in the engine bay, And the next step is to go inside the car and mount the clutch pedal, so let's go ahead and take care of that. Okay, now is the time to install the clutch pedal inside the car. There's two 12mm nuts, one 12mm bolt. Bolt goes to the top. The nuts go on the firewall itself. And I've got my ratchet right here, so let's go ahead and get this thing thrown in the car. Alright guys, clutch pedal's all mounted on the firewall and underside dashboard. Now last piece I need to connect is the clevis pin over onto this rod of the clutch master cylinder. So I'm just basically turning this thing to make some adjustments for the pedal travel. So I'm gonna go get the clevis pin. I'm gonna throw it in from this left side right here, going into the right side. And then once that clevis pin is in, I can put a cotter pin in there to lock things in position. So I'm gonna go get that clevis pin and throw this thing in here. Okay, major accomplishment here on this conversion. Clutch pedal is officially in, bolted up to the firewall, underside the dashboard. I don't know if you can see this clevis pin, but haven't tightened it up quite yet. I'm not gonna put the cotter pin in there. I wanna wait until I get fluid in the clutch master cylinder so we can actually do the fine adjustments. So getting that cotter pin out there will be a little bit of a hassle, so I'll just go ahead and save that cotter pin for last. So all the interior aspects of this 5-speed conversion is about 99% done. I'm pretty happy of how this has turned out so far. And this thing is starting to take shape finally. So we can finally move into the engine bay and start to work on the actual transmission. So we are getting closer by the day. All right, guys, this concludes the third installment for Project CB9 automatic to 5-speed conversion. We were able to change out the brake pedal, add a clutch pedal, clutch master cylinder reservoir, and the clutch line going into the slave cylinder. Hope you guys can join us in the next episode where we start to work on the transmission. If you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day.